Everybody is called. Everybody is called. And yes, everybody is called in different ways.
It was sort of a gradual awareness, but it was no sort of, big flashing moment or anything.
They sometimes have this notion that somehow a voice is going to come out of the sky and going to kind of speak directly to you, or that something dramatic is going to happen.
So whether the call is to single life, whether it's to religious life, priesthood, missionary life, married life, all of these calls are equally special to God.
I sort of woke up one day and I said, God, I wonder is it priesthood?
Initially, when I was about 15, I became interested in prayer and what it meant. Gradually, I started thinking about religious life, but I didn't know any religious, so for me it was very kind of confusing, so I just kept it to the back of my mind.
When I was a child, I was a mass server. I was very interested in what the priests were saying when they came into the school. I was very taken by their kindness, by the way they treated people, and I loved what they did as priests, and I loved seeing them work as a priest, and that's what would have given me a sense of wanting to be a priest.
From the time I was very young, I was moved by the fact that a lot of people in life have it rough. I wanted, when I started out on a vocation journey, to do something with my life that would help people. What I say to people now is it's not the reasons why I joined that are important, it's the reasons why I stay. The reason why I stay is that after many years I do actually believe that somehow that God called me here and that it's right for me, and that along the way I've been able to do a bit of good for people.
When I left school, all I ever wanted to do was become a chef, and I had a very enjoyable time training, and I travelled quite a bit. When I was about 21, I was in Australia, and I found out there that I had a real deep longing just to go to Mass on a Sunday. Then I came back home and got back into the chefing world again. And then gradually I felt a sort of an unease about there was something more, some other part of my life that hadn't opened yet. I sort of woke up one day, this particular part of the story was quite sudden. I said, God, I wonder is it priesthood?
So it's a little bit like falling in love. It can be a dramatic experience, or it can be a slow experience that you become convinced that a certain way of life is what you're called, what you feel you ought to do.
How was the child?
For myself, it's some sort of journey of discovery. You know what I mean? There's some sort of an attraction maybe to the life of priesthood, to the life of service or ministry. I think with a lot of people, maybe guys might get a glancing thought about priesthood and maybe put it aside and never think about it again, and that's fair enough. But for some, that thought never goes away. And I think that might be a sign of something happening deep within the person's heart or their soul.
I reached a point, I was 20, and I said, I will examine it, jump in, take the plunge, and if it doesn't work out, great. And I had my plan B in place if it didn't work out. But I was very open to it because I felt in myself that the time was right. But like that discerning process continued throughout my formation. I mean, it wasn't that I was in, that's it. It had really important consequences for my life that I would make perpetual vows, as a Carmelite nun. It was a learning experience, and discovering that, the religious community I'm joining is full of very real, normal people, which my family were kind of surprised and delighted at,
you get a sort of a rush of enthusiasm at the beginning when you feel called by Jesus to the seminary. The whole excitement takes over and you think, God, this is fantastic. And that continues when you come in, naturally enough. And as the time moves on, what that call may be for you becomes clear. And what generally happens is you kind of come to the conclusion that yes, he's calling me to priesthood, or else that yes, he's calling me to something different.
Now it's very simple and all the rest. It's also to do with that, please God, on your wedding day when we have the marriage complete, we'll sign the civil registration. I went into the seminary when I was 18, and some people say to me, God, that was very young, Paul. Like, sure, what did you know at 18? And looking back, I knew nothing. And yet, I didn't enter the priesthood at 18. I entered formation, and then I went through 8 years of training for priesthood.
People have to think, reflect, pray, discern over a number of years, you know, to really see is this where God is calling them, and that they have an energy for it themselves. I mean, you only want people going in who really have a passion to do this. So that takes time, as with any big decision in one's life. Obviously the ideal is a lifelong permanent commitment, but not everybody will be called to that, you see. And some, it may be part of their journey to explore it for a few years.
It's not time wasted. It will always stand to you. If they have a constant nagging feeling within them and a kind of a draw towards at least testing the water, I would say, see, is it the life for you? And, you know, give it enough time that you can, with all certainty, say, oh well, it's definitely not for me, and I'll never regret the fact that I tried it out.
Often it can be part of a journey to something else, you know, a crucial thing. You know, people gain great experience and, I wouldn't think it was a failure at all. I think there were great guts, really. Great guts to come in and great guts to leave when they know it's not for them, you know.
Get away from the myth that anybody has certainty. Sometimes they have the notion that older people, or if you're a religious or a priest, you're kind of certain about everything. I'm certain about very little, actually, you know. There are days when I feel very agnostic. But I come back to the basic thing. I do believe in the message of Jesus Christ, the message of the gospel about love and justice. At its core, the church is an institution that can have a marvellously humanizing effect on the world. And for it to work properly and to improve, we need also new vocations. I would really encourage people, men and women and so on, to consider religious life.
Do not be afraid. You know, just like John Paul II used to say,
Go for it. Have the courage to step out and give it a go, give it a shot.
For those called to it, there's huge fulfillment there.
I say, just do not be afraid. Have a go. See where that takes you.
I think definitely, chance it anyway, you know. Definitely, it's well worth trying.
I've never regretted it for 1 second, you know. Very fulfilling indeed.